Today's project was going well until I messed up my electrical diagnostics, and now my Jeep won't start. I'm working on the source of my overheating problems and hopefully fixing more problems than I create.
Dad, are you any good at this?
I don't know, maybe. Alright, so the last trip we went snow wheeling on some roads up in Michoud State Forest. We had some issues with overheating. I think there's a couple issues going on here, but the first thing I'm going to try out is, this is, to my knowledge, the original fan clutch. So the 99 4.0 has an electric fan, which I believe kicks in when the air conditioner's on or when you go over a certain temp, and then a mechanical fan with a clutch, and that runs all the time. I think they do get loose. Went through some diag videos on how to check that out, and I think it is still functioning, but probably not as well as it was once intended to. So I have the parts to fix the mechanical. We're gonna go on that one, and then I have never heard the electrical one kick on, so maybe we'll do some diagnostics to that here today. But parts are no good sitting on the bench, so let's get started. So down in here is where we're gonna be working today. We have these 4 bolts that hold it to, it looks like a water pump pulley, but it's actually just a dummy shaft on this motor. So we'll get that out, and not sure if I have to take the whole shroud out or not yet. I think I might be able to get it out the bottom, so let's give that a try. That one's pretty stiff, and this one's not much different. I'm not really sure how it's supposed to work, so we'll give it a try, see if it makes a difference. I think I'm going to hang on to the old one just in case. So last time we had issues with this, we were wheeling up some mountains, and every time, well, it was like a 7-hour drive. It just seemed like there was some heat creep going on, like the temperature gauge, if I can speak. The temperature gauge just kept climbing and climbing, and then at one point we got stuck and we shot up well above normal operating temps. I think we were like right on the bottom of the red. And when that was going on, I don't think I remember hearing much fan noise. So I'm kind of wondering if this one, even though it has some resistance right now, if when it heats up, if it stops driving. Because I think the hotter this little coil gets, the more drive it should have. And when it's cold, it should be at its weakest. So I got a heat gun here. We're gonna try heating it up and just see if the resistance changes as it goes. So we'll give that a shot. All right, so initially I saw some movement out of this spring, but right now when I spin it, doesn't really feel any different. If anything, I think it does feel easier to spin. So we'll do the same thing. We'll put it together with the new one and see what happens. Fortunately, these bolts don't seem too bad. So much I touch on this Jeep is, being from Pennsylvania, it's just rusted, and half the bolts snapped off when I was restoring. I don't know if you want to call it restoring, when I was fixing it up. Put it in the vise here if it's there. Not too bad. It seems like corrosion's pretty good in there. Grab a rubber mallet, see if I can pop this off without destroying the whole thing. There we go. Let's see if there's any markings on here. I don't see any Chrysler markings, so maybe somebody knows. I'm not sure if that's a Chrysler part or not. So this guy, a little bit different. Obviously made by a different manufacturer. This is from Rock Auto. I know some people love Rock Auto, some people don't. I've had pretty good luck with them. So, all right, so I'll put it back dirty side up, just like what we had before. So far, here's the lineup. Does not appear that they had any Loctite on these bolts. Lightly put this in the vise and snug those bolts a little bit more. It's aluminum, so I don't want to go too tight, but all right. So, the old fan on the new clutch. We're gonna run that same test, watch that spring again, see if the back's any different. You guys in close, maybe you can see the spring move as we go. I can see the middle starting to wind up there. If anything, this one's more free spinning, so definitely might not be the problem. I think we're headed to a new radiator. When I was working on this, I did do a really good coolant flush. I did new thermostat housing, new thermostat, new water pump, flushed everything like with a garden hose for a long time. It was really crudded up. There was like what looked like mud in here. Don't think this thing was maintained all that well. So what I'm suspecting is that where the hot water comes in this side, I'm guessing that a lot of these passageways are clogged with rust sediment, or I don't know if it was stop leak or what it was. So if that's the case, you might even be able to see some of the residue. Like, even after extensively cleaning it, there's always just a brown residue in this thing. So yeah, it's hard to say what it was. But so we may be headed towards a new radiator. Even the other day when I was out with Warren trying to go to that Native American rock quarry site, on some of those extended hill climbs, it still seemed like the temperature gauge was climbing. So, you know, I don't think that we're operating the way we're supposed to. I know a lot of guys will put like high-end radiator cores and stuff in these. We may get there, but I've also read a lot of people who say, like, if you have a factory system that's operating correctly, it's that these things can work well. So obviously, you know, we're only on 31-inch tires. It's not overly loaded. Like, I don't have huge bumpers on this thing or anything. It really should be able to maintain temp driving 30 mile an hour up a dirt road. So yeah, I do suspect something's going on, but this fan clutch looked suspect enough that we'll give it a shot. And yeah, so let's get it back in here and we'll see how it operates over the next couple days. So one thing I'm noticing there, that the belt is not all that tight right now. So it kind of makes me wonder if I could be having some belt slip going on as well, contributing. So I think we'll tighten that up. I did hear some belt chirping before, so it's possible. On the 99 4-liter, the belt tensioner is just a threaded mechanism. There's no spring element to it. So as the belt stretches, it's not like the tensioner is chasing it. Who even knows how often you're supposed to tighten that. Good spot for a ratcheting wrench, but then I'd have to walk over and get one, huh? And by the time I do that, I'll probably be done. So. Another thing I'm chasing on this thing is poor fuel mileage. So if the fan's not working the way it's supposed to, I think that could contribute a little bit. Already did a lot of the common stuff, so it had exhaust manifold cracks, letting air in above the oxygen sensors. That has been fixed for now. It's got all new intake exhaust gaskets. It's got new 4-hole injectors. So right now we're getting like 14 miles per gallon, which isn't as bad as it could be, but for 31-inch tires, I just sort of expected that I could probably get 16, 17 with this thing. Here in Pennsylvania, though, it is hilly and twisty and windy and stop signs. So maybe I'm just being a little overly optimistic on what this thing should get. I do know there's some bearings in the front end that make noise four-wheel drive, so it's possible I have some extra bearing drag. We'll get to that coming up here. My buddy Dustin, he's working on I think it's a 1986 YJ. It's a 4-cylinder that he's got. He's fixing up. That stock had 410 gears, so I think those gears are going to go in here. This has 355. Oh, proud of our words. So when I do those gears, I'll go ahead and put all new bearings in the front, Dana 30. And right now I'm running some unit bearings of questionable quality on the front end, so that could be part of the problem too. I think another thing that's pretty popular on these is to take the stock tranny cooler that goes through the radiator and put an auxiliary one in, so that way your trans coolant's not mixing with the radiator as much. Obviously it's all the same air going over it, but anything that helps. All right. Sort of the opposite of what I was expecting. I think the replacement fan is looser than the stock one. So I've been around a lot of cars, but everyone's a little different. And this is my first Jeep that I've owned, so somebody like Dex would probably be able to tell me if that's normal or not. But there's 2 tabs along the bottom here trying to line up. Looks like everything clears. And these are just 10mm bolts. All right, that ought to do it. So we'll start it up and see if it flies through the hood. All right, so stayed on there. So I think before we wrap this up, tighten that belt a little bit more and call it a day on that project. All right, so the next thing I'd like to figure out, this electric fan here never kicked on when I was overheating. I think it should. Obviously, a number of ways could diag this. I think I'm gonna try to just jumper power from my portable power supply to it and see if I can get it to kick on at all. Probably be smart to check fuses and stuff. I did do that when I was working on it earlier this year, but I got the power supply right here. I think it'll be pretty quick to jumper power and see if we're getting anything. We'll go from there. All right, so one thing I've already noticed, this is the pigtail connector that goes from the main harness to the auxiliary fan. See that one pin in there? Kind of wonky and short. I think that's actually not, I think that pin's partially pushed back. So that might be the whole reason we're not working. This side sort of looks okay. So we'll jumper power and make sure the fan actually works. So this is a Amazon 12 volt or variable voltage, variable amperage power supply. I forget where I got it. I think I was messing around with some electrolysis stuff. And of course, sometimes when you go to put things together, they're broken. So we're missing part of our stub there. Darn it. Maybe that's not going to work for me today either. All right, as with any good project, got to fix one thing to work on the next thing. All right, so since the terminal is off, I think what we can do is just put a crimp-on eye on the end of this positive wire feed. Pull this off here. Fingers are cold. All right, so see what fits on here nice. That's good. Theo is not happy about something. I can hear him barking in the background. definitely a cheap set. I actually think I like the eyes better. I'll put one on both. Just a little set screw that holds these cheap ends on, and every time I've ever used them, they give me problems. So we're gonna get rid of them. If you didn't know, a lot of wire cutters show you a red, blue, and yellow. At least it always seemed to me that corresponds with the colors on these cheap crimp connectors. So squish the red one in the red mark, and then like a yellow one, which is that, see how the yellow's not as crimped as much? They are bigger connectors. All right, it's a bonus project here. Let's see, it's good. Let's see. So main voltage controls your right knob, and I believe that's fine. So obviously this is 12. Turn this off for a minute and see if, with DC motors, which is what this is, it should not matter. It'll just spin backwards if we're going wrong. This doesn't put out a lot of amperage, and these wires are relatively heavy, so it's a good chance this is going to put out more voltage than, or draw more amperage than it can handle, so it might run slow. Got a nice day, so the street bikes are out here zooming by. Let's see what happens here. All right. If you guys can see that, get the light back in here. So, the van's right there, and give her some juice. Moving some air. Sounds a little crunchy, but I don't think it's run for a while, so. Drawing 5 amps, doesn't seem too bad. All right, so that tells us the fan is working. So I don't need to go buy more parts. That's a good thing. So now that we know the fan works, we know it's on the control side. So fuse, relay, wiring, pin. We're going to address that pin first, and then maybe take it for a test drive and see if we can get that fan to kick on. The AC on this doesn't work, so it won't, that fan won't come on with the AC. No refrigerant in it. And obviously I don't want to overheat it to test it that way. So I don't know. Let me think about that, and we'll figure out how to test it. All right, so never worked on this exact kind of pin before, but you can see here, well, you probably actually can't see. I'll try to get you up close here. There is this black plastic, I'm gonna call it cover, on the back of this connector. Looks like if I come in here, I might be able to slide it back. Normally, for ease of assembly, all these connectors typically come apart. So there's that. I'm gonna get a pick. I'm gonna call this like a, well, let's see, get it out with the screwdriver. We're gonna call this like the rubber weather seal. I wouldn't call these things watertight, but they're definitely water resistant. Yeah, we're gonna get a right angle pick. So basically what I'm trying to do is get this out so that way I can see if I can inspect that actual pin and see if it's just pushed back or if there's a bigger issue with the connector. The nice thing is this is separate, so if there is something wrong to it, I'll probably just run to the salvage yard, try to find a good one. All right, so let's see if we can get the light here. You guys can see, it's so tough to video some of this stuff. I can see it plain as day, but all right. So right here, that pin is way farther back than that one. It's not anywhere near where it's supposed to be. So see how it comes right out? And this one's tight. Okay, so this is a pretty standard pin, at least for working on Jeeps. It looks like the whole thing's there. A little bit burnt on the contact, so probably what happened there, if I had to guess, it wasn't making good contact and then it was arcing and stuff. See the light reflecting off the tip? Pin kind of looks fine, so I'm gonna try to push it back in. Man, this stuff's hard to video. There you go, see down in there. So we're gonna put it back in there, see if we can get this to There's been a couple issues on this Jeep where it seems like somebody has been into the connectors before. I didn't video it, but I chased a problem. When I first got it, it had no blower motor. Well, the blower motor would run, but nothing would come out the vents. And I thought it was clogged, but actually it wasn't clogged. At some point, a long time ago, somebody had the connector apart for the blower motor and had the pins reversed. So the blower motor was working, but it was running backwards. A lot of times these will click or make some kind of click noise. I'm gonna go get some little needle nose pliers. So anyway, on the ACE, or on the blower motor issue, everything was fine. I actually ended up taking the whole dash out to try to diagnose that. It took forever. And then I was bench testing it, and that's when I figured out the wiring was backwards. So somebody's definitely been working on this in the past and had connectors apart. And I was talking to the previous owner. He was thinking it's a good chance that the blower motor hadn't worked in this thing maybe most of its life, because it had blower motor issues when it was new. And yeah, it's just not going back together quite the way I would expect. Try one. Seems like this thing can go in a couple different ways. Try it this way. So the trick is when you're pushing it in, the wire sort of wants to bend, so they just don't have much ability to do that. Yeah, see that? It's not, this one's locked in nice. Not so much on that one. I think I probably will pick another one of these up at the yard, but let's see if we can get it back together right now. Now that I know that that's a weakness, when I push it together, I can be careful. And this plastic stuff just falls apart. If you look at it wrong. Here's the mating connector. See if there's anything funky going on with that. It does look a little bit crispy on the side corresponding to that, so great sign. This came under here this way. All right, well, one more thing for the list on the junkyard, huh? All right, tuck this back down in here. All right, so we're over here at the fuse box. We got a, but you can't read upside down, cooling fan relay there and cooling fan 40 amp fuse here. So just a quick test light, have power. So I'm on the ground terminal here. So that appears to be good. And then control relay, that's a little trickier to test. But. All right, so just messing around with this, trying to figure out if the fan works. I did figure out if you very carefully unplug this, it sends a signal to the computer that there is no temperature signal, and then it kicks the fan on. So at least I know that the computer's capable of kicking the fan on. Yeah, but I may have started another problem for myself. I ended up with a check engine light, which would make sense if it was just on from me messing with that fan switch, but unfortunately it started before that. So there's the code for the, let's see if I clear that. Erase okay, but the check engine light stays on. So I think where I went wrong, when I was playing around in here with the test light, and I know better, I accidentally had jumpered power onto that relay, which is connected to the ECU. So I'm wondering if I didn't mess something up there. Not good. I gotta do some reading. So, but at least we know right now that that fan can kick on if she overheats, and we have a supposedly functioning fan clutch. So we'll see. I was going to pull the Jeep inside to read up on the P0443 code, and then this happened. It would crank long and then stumble, and it just would not start. I turned it off, looked for new codes again, and still only had the P0443 in the readiness data. The code would still not clear. At this point, I was really concerned that I had messed up the ECU while I was testing the electrical fan. I disconnected the battery for a bit and then tried to start again. I played with the throttle a bit while cranking and it fired off and ran. This was all puzzling, so I got in the garage and did some research on what may have just happened. The Jeep has been a reliable starter, so something was odd. P0443 is a canister purge valve code. On a 1999 XJ, the canister purge valve solenoid lives up here on the firewall. Mine makes an audible clicking noise when it's working. My theory for what happened is that when I tried to start the Jeep, this solenoid valve was in the purge position. This would have let extra fuel or air into the system, causing it to not want to start. It also could have tripped the code when the ECU did not see the solenoid responding correctly. Some forums suggested that to clear P0443 from the ECU, I should disconnect the battery and touch the two battery leads together for 15 seconds. I tried this and it did clear the code. Since I did this, the Jeep has started fine and no codes have come back. What do you think happened? Drop a comment below. I have a few more Jeep project videos coming up. I need to build some sort of front recovery points and do a home wheel alignment. I also have a backpacking trip coming up, and I'm going to try to get the kids out to explore an abandoned World War II POW camp in the mountains near our home. Thanks for watching.